Welcome back, guys. I'm so excited to be in front of a camera again. So I've this is gonna be about Fruits Basket. But just giving you like a really quick update. I'm gonna do things even more differently. I think I'm gonna use my phone and my good camera kind of for different things. That way I can get some uploads loaded up and hopefully there's not going to be as much of a wait between videos. Because I love being here. I love being on YouTube. I love talking about everything I talk about on this lovely channel of mine that I'm slowly growing. So I'm starting a series, and I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a theme series. So things that do themes really well. For some reason, I have just been watching a lot of stuff that has been centered around grief and just like having to deal with loss and stuff. So, this is going to be continuing that theme. I think Fruit Basket is probably the most uplifting thing that we're going to be talking about because at the end of the day, it's a shoujo. There's a lot of really light points. And the main thing is really Honda getting over her mother's death, and that's not a spoiler. That happens in the first, like you know about that in like the first couple episodes. So I'm really excited to talk about this because I haven't watched shoujo for a really long time. If you know I'm gonna just give you a little bit backstory. Like I've been watching the big three, so Naruto, Bleach, and One Piece. And then I got into Death Note, Psycho-Pass, like all this shoujin. I don't know if I don't know what like psychological thrillers like Psycho-Pass. I don't know what those are considered, but I've been digging deep into that genre, and I was like, you know what? I've heard rumblings about Fruit Basket and that it's really good. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. It's about the Zodiac. Um, Basically, when they hug the opposite sex, they change into their Zodiac animals. And the thing about this show, even though it's supposed to be a lot lighter, it's really, really dark. I think, and that's what got me through it was really the mystery of the Zodiac. I think if you did not have that mystery and if it was just kind of, you know, kind of like kind of a love triangle between three characters, and then they switch it at the end. Um, I think I would have not gotten into this as much, but the mystery of the Zodiac is really, really interesting. The story that you get with there's a banquet and something happens with the cat and the cat's not really part of the Zodiac, and why is that? Um that was really interesting. The love story, it's so hard to rate love stories when it's like teenagers. I've noticed that recently since I've been, like I'll go back to like One Tree Hill and stuff like that, and some of their older seasons that you're like they're teenagers. Like, why are they being this dramatic? And that was some of the issues I was having with Fruit Basket. Um, I love that towards the end, Honda, Miss Honda, that's what they call her in the show, so that's why I'll call her here. Basically, literally, like, she does not really accept her mother's death till the very end. And that's very realistic to what I think grief does to a person, especially like her mom was ran over by a car. Um so like that instance of like, oh, they're here and they're not, like that shock and stuff, and the difference between like, you know, like the levels of, you finally get to that acceptance level. it's just not there. And I thought that was really realistic and done very, very well. I think the torturement of the Zodiac members was done really well. Their parent, most of their parents not accepting them and having to be brainwashed uh, to forget their kids, pretty realistic. Like this anime does not shy back to like what it would feel like to basically be an outsider because you can't have a normal life because obviously you unless you're gay and you fall in love with the same sex, you can't really have a relationship unless they know and they accept your zodiac, which is not normally the case. We learned that really early in the beginning with the doctor, and she eventually gets to the point where she's starting to freak out that this is not going away. um but you know and it's the grief of not being able to have a typical life. um and we get that a lot with the teenage cast. Like they have like these big dreams, like if I wasn't part of the Zodiac, I would be doing this. And some of the adults, like you can tell, are still living typical lives. Like the doctor is a doctor to the family. I don't know if that's what he wanted to do. They don't really go into that much. They kind of go into his love story. But you have the other guy that's a writer, and then the other guy makes clothes. And then it's like all on the teenagers to do better than the adults. And I found that was kind of interesting because to me the adults were really well established. Like none of them were like criminals or anything like that. They seemed like they were living their normal lives fine. Um and then, you know, there's this curse was supposed to kind of bound them together and bound them to their god. I'm gonna call her God, pretty much because they said her name like 500 million times, and I still don't have it in my head. So, and I think that's really what she is. I I did fall in love with the godlike character. I found her very bratty until the end, when she finally realizes that she needs to let the Zodiac go. And I don't really think I don't think there is a villain of the show. They play her as a villain, but then you have her mother that's like a puppeteer of what she's doing. So, and I think that was kind of a downfall to the last couple bits of this to the last season, is that you go from it being really, really dark and her twisted mind, and she's all, she hates women. Like, why does she hate women around her Zodiac? And what's with the wolf and her dog? It's a dog. Dog and her, like, what game are they playing with each other? Like, it was getting very twisted, and I was like, okay, this is peak. Like, this is peak fiction right here. Like, and mind you, like, what I like is the darkness. Like, I love, like, Game of Thrones. I like, Red Rising. Even Death Note, Bleach, Naruto. They go, like, into really dark places, and I feel like they don't get out of it as quickly as Fruit Basket did. And that was, like, my problem with it, was, like, we would get, like, a couple really dark, okay, like, we're really learning about the Zodiac. We're really learning about the torture that they've gone through. Why do we hate the god? And then you would have, like, a beach episode. And that's some of my issue kind of with anime in general. when it comes to like shoujo is that I don't feel like they have the same oomph as like with Shojin, where it's like it's made for boys and they can go to the darker realms. Like Full Metal, because a lot of people have been talking about Full Metal. I love Full Metal. Um Full Metal is like one of the darkest things that you'll ever see. Um and I should probably do a video about it because it is grief, but we'll see. But comparable to that and the humor that comes in, like the humor is like kind of lightening the dark a little bit, because if you just had that show without humor, it would just be this dark, tragic, over and over again. They're being hit by this tragedy over and over again. And I just don't think it would be as like grounded in reality as like when you add some humor to it. I don't think and hopefully my Persona 3 one will be up. I don't think like stories should always be like one thing or another. Persona 3 does a really good job, but there is some like moments, just not very many. But that's the thing with Fruit Basket is like we would get to like a point where, okay, we're getting somewhere, and then they would have like a beach episode, or they would have like an episode like you could tell like there's a lot of filler in this. And I watched the 2019 one, which I thought would just be like straight through, which I think it actually actually was. But at the same time, I was there for like one thing only. And I think that's my problem too, is that it's not easy to do the typical like typical day-to-day life without, some filler. And I think like they couldn't have done it anything better than what they did for the 2019. I don't bother, like, if I know that, like, the other version's not as good as the newer one, I just watch the newer one. I might read the manga eventually to see if the manga is different than the anime. I know a lot of people, some of people's gripes is the art style. I find that the 2019 really updates the art style. So if you like open up the manga and you're just like, I don't like this art style, maybe put on the 2019 anime and watch it that way. Because the story is really good. And even Honda, with how I think like not there she is, like she's not the smartest protagonist that I think they could have had. I love her two friends because they bring the intelligence out. Because I feel like with Honda just being kind of a ditzy, like I would almost like to call her blonde. Like she's kind of like a ditzy blonde, but she cares so much for the people around her, and I think that's that's what really amps up the her character, is like she just cares so much about all the Zodiac. Like it's not just the cat that spoilers, she ends up with the cat, which is kind of who she ends up with kind of makes me mad in some ways, because I think it's just like they said it in the first episode, like that she always loved the cat. So, okay, so are you going to be, like, you ended up with the cat? Like, thanks. Like, I didn't need to see a whole show of, you fall in love with the cat, when I knew that you were going to probably fall in love with the cat. I was thinking, in all honesty, she was going to be with the rat. And I think for like the longest time, it was set up as this love triangle between the cat and the rat. And that's kind of how they ended the show too, is that the cat never wins against the rat when it comes to Honda. And then he ends up being her soulmate. And it's just, not that I wanted it to have a bad ending, because I feel like these people should just have way better endings. Sorry, guys. These better endings than what was set up, but I don't know. I didn't like the ending. I thought it was too clean cut. I think them losing their bond was very too clean cut. And like the rooster the whole time, like not actually being part of the Zodiac, and his bond has broken for like a while, it seemed, and like all that was kind of messy. And I did not like how messy that was. I was really hoping for something a little bit better. And then it's like, if Honda was the one to break the curse, and her kindness was what broke the curse, like, why did it take so long? And that was something to me, like, I was like thinking, okay, maybe it's an object, or maybe they have to go to a certain place, or they have to do something, but it's just like Honda being in their presence. And then it's like it circles all the way back to, okay, now is Honda the god now? And that's kind of, or the house lead, I think that's what, and that's kind of where I was like, okay, like, I don't like that cycle, because they're trying to break this cycle, but then it's like at the ending, depending on how you read the ending of Fruit Basket, you could read it as she didn't break a cycle at all. She's the new house lead. Obviously, she's not going to be as tortured and stuff as like the previous one was, but that's what it's kind of ending up, and I did not like that. And it's just this whole cycle of grief all over again. Like, if she loses it at any point, even though they're not bonded, that she could possibly bring back that tortured soul, and get to the point where they have to, go back to, some type of form of a cultish atmosphere, which I did not really like that interpretation. I guess the other interpretation you can just do is she reminded them that there's love out there besides the house lead, and like she did break the cycle of grief that way. But it's just the whole thing, and it was too happy of an ending, like, for something that was very, like, really, really dark and sinister and everything. Like, it was just like, oh yeah, I love you all, now the curse is broken. Like, I kind of, like, and like the order of the curse being broken and stuff, like, I did not like the introduction of the bunny actually being fully in love with her either, because there was hints of that too. Like, there was, the bunny in some ways I think should have stayed as like a really boyish character, because I think that worked for, like, oh, he just loves her as a big sister and stuff like that, where, like, in the last season he grows up and now he's like the cat and the rat, and like there's this competition between three of them now for Honda's affection, when by that point you're pretty much like, okay, it's going to either be the cat or the rat. The rabbit's not going to matter. and I did not like that. And like I am okay with them, like them being friends. It's like I didn't like the whole thing between, oh my goodness, what was she? The horse was the really tragic girl, which that was really, really good. The My favorite relationship, okay, I need to get into this. My favorite relationship was the cow and the horse. Because I felt like they were playing it as they've known each other for a long time and their relationship was growing. It wasn't instant love, it wasn't anything like that. And you could tell with all the adult relationships and theirs, because I think they're a little bit older. They're actually younger, but they act older, so I don't know what that's about. But they do a really good job of that whole, okay, I'm going to get to know you, and then I'm going to fall in love with you, and that growth of a relationship. Really, really well done. That's something that Shojin needs help with, because the relationships and all of those are just terrible. Bleach might break it, and maybe we'll get a really good relationship, unless you're talking about Full Metal. But Full Metal was written by a woman. Most of the ones that I complain about are written by men. But I'm not talking about side characters. I'm talking about main characters, because there's some, like, in One Piece that are really, really good. But for the most part, that's where they need help. So it was really nice to watch something that the romance was actually done really well. I don't think we get that a lot in anime, because, it's either really weird, like it's like a weird brother and sister relationship, or it's a weird, like, dynamic, or something like that, or like it's like very, very wishy-washy. But this is really good writing of a love story. The growth of, okay, I'm gonna take everything I learned about you and just really try to understand you. And I think that is something that video games seem like they actually do a little bit more of a decent job. I'm like more thinking like Final Fantasy and stuff like that. There's some really good written romances in those. But yeah, most anime, like, I have to question like some of their romantic choices. Um so yeah, that's, and the grief is really well done. Like, I don't, there's so much loss in this show. I was really surprised. Like, when you start this show, like, she's lost her mother and she's living in a tent. And then these men find her and was like, oh, you can live with us. Like, that's how the show starts. And I think by the end of it, like, her accepting, that, hey, mom's gone. I can love somebody else. Somebody else can take the front of my heart. Like, it was really impactful. And like a lot of them have suffered like loss of like their parents not loving them and being pushed on to another parental figure. That, to me, a lot of them get like the best parental figures. Like, the cat gets the master of the JoJo. He's such a good character. And then I even think the wolf in a lot of ways is a decent little parent figure in some ways. Like, I think he's teaching them, like, I know you've gone through all this abuse, but you can have fun too. Even though he is kind of sinister in his own way. And I'm trying to, like, I sit there, I'm like, oh, are you evil? Are you good? Like, there's sections of the wolf that's like really, really like Red Riding Hood, like getting her into the forest type of thing. And and I thought that was really well done. I just overall, I like this series. I think it's like a 4.5. Like, it's not perfect by any means, but it really does, in all these ways, like, represent the loss and the grief and everything. So, if you like more content like this, I'm going to try to come back to Thursdays and Sundays. I can't promise anything, but I'm hoping with kind of the new way I'm going to do this is I think I'm going to do a lot of my extremely talky videos on my phone. Because I know what you guys are probably doing. You guys are probably not watching me as much as when I'm like lifting books up or something like that. And then for my book content, probably more on the camera, just so I can get the footage where it needs to be set up. But I hope you guys have a lovely day, and I will be in a video hopefully real soon here. Bye!